Hello and welcome back. In this lesson, we'll talk about many-to-many associations. So far, we've dealt with one-to-many associations in our app a couple of times, where we have one chef who has many recipes, one chef has many likes, one recipe has many likes, etc. Now let's review this relationship in an image. So here's a standard one-to-many association. You have the chef, and you have the recipe, and you have a chef ID in the recipe, which is the many side, which is the foreign key that refers to the chef, right? The chef from the chef's table. So this is how you normally implement a one-to-many, where you have the chef has many recipes and the recipe belongs to chef. Okay? Now, one-to-many association at the database layer, it's pretty simple. You just have the two tables and you have these associations in the model, right? In the models. But the many-to-many associations at the database layer are implemented using what's called a third table, which is a join table, okay? So let me pull up a many-to-many association. All right, so actually that's a complicated one. So let's pull this up. So you have recipes table here, right? So you have some of the recipes that we have. You have a summary description. And let's say we have this new table called styles, okay? And the styles basically has what style of food it is: Chinese, Greek, Mexican, etc., etc. Okay? Now here, in the database layer, what we're looking at is a third table, which is referred to as the join table. So in our app, in terms of our app, if you look at recipes, we'll build this table called styles, and then we're going to join the two using this join table, which is the recipe styles table. Okay? So you can see here a recipe can be multiple styles. Like it can, let's say chicken sauté, right? It could be Chinese food. You could always say if the style is sauté, so it's multiple. So then what you have in this recipe styles table is chicken sauté will have an entry, and then this will refer to the foreign key recipe ID here, but it will also have an associated style ID row, and that style ID refers to here. So this one entry says chicken sauté 1, style ID 1, Chinese, okay? But then you also have chicken sauté as an entry here in the second row, which is 2. Style ID for this is 5, which is this one right here for style table. So you see how the chicken sauté, 2 entries, and it has different style IDs associated with it. So there is kind of a one-to-many in this case, but then similarly, you have over here style ID 1, which is chicken sauté. Style ID 1, which is Chinese, has chicken sauté associated with it in recipe ID. It also has 3, okay, recipe ID, chicken nuggets associated with it. So all of a sudden, I think I got that backwards. Style ID 1, Chinese, and then has recipe ID 1, which is chicken sauté, and then you have style ID 1 again, which is Chinese, and then recipe ID 3, which is chicken nuggets. Now it could be anything, but I'm just using this as an example, right? So here you could have one style associated with multiple recipes. Similarly, one recipe associated with multiple styles. And you store each of those associations in this table, right? So that way you can have many recipes associated with many styles, and similarly many styles associated with many recipes. So that's a many-to-many associations. So for our app, we're going to do this as a many-to-many association. We're going to have recipes which we have already. Then we're going to have an ingredients table which we're going to create. We're also going to have a styles table which we're going to create. And then we're going to have two many-to-many associations. One, recipes is going to have with styles. And for practice, we're going to create a second one. We're going to have this many-to-many association with ingredients. So recipe is going to have many ingredients, and similarly, ingredients is going to have many recipes, but that join is going to take place using the recipe ingredient join table. Similarly, recipe is going to have many styles. Styles are going to have many recipes associated with it, and that join is going to take place by using the recipe style table. Okay, so let's look at this. Let's look at some more documentation on this. Over here, if you go to guides.rubyonrails.org and then look at association basic, this is how we're going to implement the many-to-many association. We're going to do this using the has many through association. So I'd encourage you to read through this has many through as much as you can. But at a very summarized level, you're going to have, see here we have an example of a physician model, you have a patient model, and then the join is happening using the appointment model. Okay, so similarly for the models, you have the tables. You have the physicians table, you have the patients table, and then you have the appointments table, which is the join. So a physician can have many patients through appointments. A patient can have appointments with many physicians through the appointments table also. So here you see the physician ID and patient ID, which are the foreign keys. So in our app, we're going to use the recipe ID and style ID for the association between recipe and styles. And for the association between ingredient and recipe, we're going to have the recipe ID and the ingredient ID as the foreign IDs, which we're going to store in the recipe ingredient table. Okay? So the key line in this, the key syntax, is this has many patients through appointments. Okay? And this is how you implement the many-to-many association. This is basically one way that Rails and Active Record implements this many-to-many association. There's another way. It's called has and belongs to many, but we will not focus on that. We'll focus on many-to-many through has many through. Okay? And this is more popular. Has and belongs to many has really fallen out of favor. So so the next thing is I want you to do two things. I want you to go through this documentation and on many-to-many associations using has many through, and I want you to look up a couple of other sources also. Just Google has many through and many-to-many association and try to look at it instead of Rails perspective, try to look at it at a database layer perspective, right? Because this is a very database specific thing. Rails implements this, and this is how Rails implements this using has many through, but it's a very database thing, which is the many-to-many association. And then once you have had a chance to look at a couple of examples and look through it, I want you to think about and write out on a piece of paper how we would implement the migrations and the models, etc., and what the code would be. I want you to write that out in a piece of paper. So again, I'll pull up the image here. I want you to think about where you would write has many, and where would you write belongs to, and where would you write has many through, in which model, and what are the models that you would need, what are the migrations or the table names that you would need to implement this. So I want you to think about that, and good luck with it, and we'll implement this for our app in the next lesson. So see you there.